before it was too late. Tony headed for the gardens, carefully keeping his expression pleasant as he passed Jeff's grandmother, an aunt or two, and two men that he assumed were related to Reese. Reese. God. Somewhere in this church, she was preparing to walk down the aisle and marry the man of her dreams, the man who didn't deserve her, and, if Tony had anything to say about it, would be breaking her heart before the day was over. Fuck. Jeff was being such an ass, and this was before he'd dumped Reese. Tony hit the door leading to the garden with his hand harder than was really necessary. The door swung open to reveal a tranquil courtyard filled with flowers in a variety of colors that perfumed the air and made Tony pull in a long breath. The low buzz of bees and the sound of water bubbling worked to release some of the tension across his shoulders. Dang, there was something to the peaceful garden thing. And then he remembered why he was there. Jeff, damn it, I know you're out here. Shit. The mumbled curse came from Tony's left, and he stalked to the trellis of climbing roses. Get out here. His childhood friend rose from the stone bench behind the roses and turned to face him. Why am I wearing a tux in church instead of jeans in a casino? Tony asked. We talked about this. Jeff pushed a hand through his thick blonde hair and sighed. I fell asleep last night before I could call her, and then this morning I woke up and... He pulled in a deep breath and met Tony's eyes. I looked at the picture of her on my desk, and I couldn't do it. You should have been looking at that picture a month ago, and 4 months ago, and the weekend after you met her, Tony told him. Then maybe you wouldn't have been able to cheat on her. Jeff shook his head, looking miserable. I don't know what to do. You need to tell her. I know. Tony didn't really want Jeff to tell Reese anything. It would kill her. The idea of Reese being hurt the way Jeff was going to hurt her was like a knife to Tony's gut. But he really did want Jeff to tell her, because that would end this whole thing. He could admit that the idea of her saying I do to Jeff had been making his stomach hurt for a few months now, and knowing that Jeff had cheated on her made Tony want to hurt his best friend. Like a broken nose, or a rib or two, maybe a finger, and typically fighting seemed like a lot of effort. Tony's plan to take Jeff to Vegas had not been about drowning Jeff's sorrows, or celebrating Jeff's intact bachelorhood, or getting Jeff's mind off of things. It had been about getting Jeff the fuck away from Reese. It had been about helping him leave her at the altar. It had been about getting him out of town and drunk before he could change his mind and convince her that he was sorry. Tony didn't think Reese would forgive Jeff's infidelity easily, but Tony wasn't willing to take that chance. This was the first glimmer of hope he'd had since he had introduced Jeff to the gorgeous bartender at his club. Tony had known Reese, had talked and flirted with her for almost 2 months before Jeff had come to the club to play cards. Tony hadn't done anything about his attraction or intrigue. He'd been content to see Reese every Tuesday and Thursday, make her laugh, make her blush, and tip her big. Then Jeff had come in one night, and the minute Tony had introduced them, he'd seen the interest and intent in Jeff's eyes. It had been a long 6 months since then. 6 months of him kicking himself and simultaneously hoping that Jeff would screw up and Reese would break up with him. And Jeff had screwed up. He'd cheated and fallen in love with another woman, a woman smart enough to tell him to take a hike when he'd revealed he was engaged to someone else. But he'd hidden the whole thing from Reese and Tony until last night. Damn. Tony should have arranged to send Reese on a trip. To Hawaii. Or Italy, maybe. She was the one who deserved to get out of town. She was going to need to drown a few sorrows. Because of his